So hello and welcome to this revision series, okay, for corporate restructuring, and it is for both old as well as the new syllabus students. Conceptually, the syllabus is same, so it doesn't matter whether you're from old syllabus or you are from new syllabus. The idea is to finish the entire corporate restructuring uh, in a quick manner, and this is not where I'm going to clear your concepts, but in these videos, we'll just do the quick recap. So if you have already studied the portion of corporate restructuring before, or you have already appeared for corporate restructuring previously in the exam, in any of the previous attempt, and then these videos can be helpful for you to understand and just brush up the concepts. Either you can start the topics before I take any topic in the class. Let's say today I'm going to start with this types of corporate restructuring, or you can say introduction to corporate restructuring. So either you have the option to start these topics before the introduction to corporate restructuring, before I take this particular chapter, or else what you can do is once I finish the revision session, after that you can take up this chapter and do your revision from your end. So probably we should be able to finish off the entire CRI by 30th of November. And by then you should be in a position to be able to write the answers also well in the exam. And post 30th November, you can do some past year question practice, right? You can do the practice papers that will be again helpful for all of you. So when we start with this types of corporate restructuring, we know in this chapter, you get most of the questions that you get is the comment based. By the way, I'm going to use the same PowerPoint presentation that I've used to teach all of you. And in between, I'll also pick up the module, the institute module for both old as well as the new syllabus students, so that psychologically you have the comfort that yes, sir is teaching from our module and it is relevant for our syllabus. Though again, I'm clarifying that it doesn't matter whether you're from old syllabus or you're from the new syllabus. So here, when I say corporate restructuring, introduction to corporate restructuring, the most common question which you get from here is why corporate restructuring is there. And most of the questions that we have covered in the PYQ is again on the comment based, the need for corporate restructuring, types of corporate restructuring, rationale for corporate restructuring. So you get a straightforward question there. Be very careful that when you write the answer for these questions, you have to write your answer in points, and also you include as many as points you can include in the answer. जितने points आपके answer में होंगे और जितना example आप अच्छे से लिखोगे, that is going to be helpful for you. So keep this thing in your mind that when you get a question for corporate restructuring, from this chapter, Introduction to Corporate Restructuring, be very careful that you write your answer in points and you incorporate examples. Also, read the question well. Again, PYQ session may I have covered this, that read the question well so that you understand what question is asked. Okay, so it may be possible that they are asking you rationale of corporate restructuring, whereas you're writing the different types of corporate restructuring. New syllabus students, you may also get that a situation where they will ask you which corporate restructuring activity the company should do. Now, when I say new syllabus, it doesn't mean that old syllabus students, for you all, this question cannot be asked, but quite possible you may get a situation and they will ask you which corporate restructuring strategy is best suited for this particular situation and why. So you have to be ready with why, and accordingly you have to write the answer here. So when I say corporate restructuring, it is again when you do any changes in the organization, there can be some addition, there can be some deletion. So addition would be by way of mergers or acquisitions, and deletion would be by way of demerger. There could be some modifications which is going to take place in the organization. And the major reason of corporate restructuring is you have to survive. You have to survive in the industry, or you are looking for the growth. So like I mentioned that the kind of questions which you are going to get in exam is the need, the tools, the mode of corporate restructuring, which is the most suitable mode for a particular situation, and the different types of corporate restructuring. So one question which you usually get is the difference between the organic and the inorganic growth, or you get that the organizations grow inorganically. So what happens when the organizations grow inorganically? That is one of the way to grow or expansion. The expansion can take place by way of inorganic growth, and What happens in case of inorganic growth? You acquire the business, okay, you acquire the businesses which are there in the industry. They can be your competitor, they can be your supplier, they can be your customer company or anything, but you acquire the company to draw synergy benefits, right? And due to this synergy benefits, you expand fast, you expand your market share, also you get a strong customer base, and that's how the overall profitability improves of the company and you grow as an organization. So inorganic growth, growing inorganically, is a fast way of expansion. Here you can give multiple examples, like Facebook had acquired Instagram, Facebook had acquired WhatsApp. Then recent ones, the example that you can give is basically you can say that the Reliance Industries, they have taken, though it's still controversial, the matter is still subjudiced, that you have acquired, the Reliance Industries have acquired stake in the future future retail. So that's where they enter into the retail space for the GeoMart. So these examples you can always give in the answer. So inorganic growth, it helps like this. Then inorganic growth, like it's mentioned that it's expansion by way of mergers, takeover, acquisitions of the other forms of the business. Then you get the need and scope of the corporate restructuring. So every, your answer should have this, that every corporate restructuring is with a predetermined objective. You will never have a situation where the company does corporate restructuring just like that, or without any predetermined objective. They do a corporate restructuring activity. There will always be a rationale, there will always be a need, there will always be a situation why a corporate restructuring is needed. So those corporate restructuring is needed. One is to enhance the shareholders value, where you try to expand the valuation of the company by doing more and more of expansion. By acquiring more company, you grow bigger in terms of your market value as well as in terms of your customer size, and all that results in higher profitability. So that's where you enhance the shareholder value. Then second is orderly redirection of the firm's activity. So here you can, now since you all have studied corporate restructuring, so I can speak little extra with respect to, or the topics that when I had taught you for the first time, I had not used these terminologies, but now you can actually do this. I can connect it. So here you can basically write about the forward and the backward integration. So what happens when the company does forward and backward integration? It in that way, company orderly redirects its firm's activity, which again leads to the smoothen of the overall operations of the company and also results in the overall profitability of the company. Also, deploying the surplus cash from one business to finance the other. Always write this example. You have Reliance Industry, which is doing this. Then you also have ITC, which did this from a tobacco rich company or a tobacco based company. They ventured into hotels, then to FMCG, and they are right now into the IT space and multiple. It's a conglomerate right now. Similarly, if you see Reliance Industry, so from a petrochemical company, they have expanded to telecom sector, to retail, to fashion. So many things you are going to get in here. So to deploy the surplus cash from one business to the other one, again, corporate restructuring helps. Now, how this takes place? So you can write it. Either the company enters into the new business by setting up the new business, or the company basically does the mergers and the acquisitions where inorganically it grows. Thereafter, you will see exploiting the interdependence amongst the present and the prospective business. So here is again where you say that the company, where it is right now and where it wants to go. So again, through the corporate restructuring activity, they do the gap analysis and they try to fill that gap analysis using the corporate restructuring activity. So a simple example, company wants to increase the market share. Now, how to increase the market share? One way is you set up more stores, or the other is go and acquire your competitors. So again, in organic growth, you do this. Thereafter, risk reduction. So diversification is one way with which you reduce the risk. Like again, ITC can be one of the best example. You can also give example for Reliance, that it's a petrochemical company, and we know the world is now moving towards the renewable source of energy. So gradually, the petrochemical business may not sustain in future, right? I'm not talking about immediately 2 years, 3 years, but in long term, the petrochemical business may not be that profitable. Hence, Reliance has expanded to different ventures, and again, it has reduced the risk. ITC has also done this. It has reduced its dependence on the tobacco business. From tobacco business, it has ventured into so many different businesses, which has now reduced the overall risk of the ITC. Then there can be development of the core competency. So core competency is acquired. So which type of acquisition you will do to develop your core competency? You are going to do the horizontal acquisitions, horizontal mergers you are going to do, and you are going to focus only on the core competency. So I am not bothered about my supplier, I'm not bothered about my customer, I'm only bothered about what I do, and I am just going to focus on that. So core competency. Another strategy which can be applied in case of development of the core strategy, core competency, is demerger. So if there is any other businesses which I'm entered into, let's say I'm into multiple businesses, but I just want to focus on my one or two particular business, I am going to demerge the other businesses so that I can focus only on my core business. Then to obtain the tax advantages, so this is again the reverse merger. I need not mention this again, right? Reverse merger, section 72A, we take the benefit, tax benefit, because the loss making company is acquired by a profit making company, and the unabsorbed depreciation and the losses of the loss making company is further utilized to to set off the profits of the profit making company, and they make a benefit. Then to have access of better technology, that's where you can take example of let's say Facebook. Okay, you can take example of Facebook and Reliance, right? So Facebook is providing technology to the Reliance, and then Reliance is venturing into the various e-commerce business, right? So that's again a good synergy which they have developed. Otherwise, you can say companies which enter into cross-border basically. So companies from Japan, a lot of Japanese company have collaborated with the Indian company so that the Indian companies can have a better access to this technology, then to become globally competitive. So again, here you can write multiple things. Companies develop their brands. So with the help of the brand value, they become globally competitive. They get a better presence. Then you can also give example that try to incorporate inorganic growth in all your answers. So again, with inorganic growth, when the companies do overseas acquisition, they get or they enter into the new markets and they can become globally competitive. So suddenly you will realize that the company which was only a national company, okay, pan India, it was competing, it did a overseas acquisition, now it is competing globally with the other companies in the overseas market, that's there. And to increase the market share, so this is again can be by way of expansion through the inorganic growth. So try to include, when you write the answer for need and scope of corporate restructuring, please include this line that every corporate restructuring activity is pursuant to a predetermined objective at the corporate level, because without this predetermined objective, no company would do any sort of a corporate restructuring. And those predetermined objectives can be any. It can be one of these, it can be a combination of multiple, right? So it can be anything. Depending upon the kind of questions you have, you write the answer. Thereafter, you have the different. Lalita, please don't scribble on the screen, right? Thank you. Then we have this company called as, this concept of types of corporate restructuring. So the different types of corporate restructuring is, when you have the financial restructuring, where I say you restructure the balance sheet of the company. So while you restructure the balance sheet of the company, you have a overcapitalized company, you have a undercapitalized company. Now, both overcapitalized and undercapitalized company is bad because it results in poor financials of the company. The company do not perform well in terms of the profitability. What happens in case of a overcapitalized company? Company has got invested, or company has invested surplus funds in the business. However, the company is able to invest a less amount, but the cost of the funds is for whatever company has raised from the market. Therefore, the cost do not justify, or the funds which are invested in the company do not justify the amount of invested which are done. It results to a lot of idle funds in the company. Hence, we say that in case of an overcapitalized company, the returns are less. Even though the business is doing good, But because of the idle funds which is there in the business, we say the company is not performing well, and it results in overall lesser EPS, lesser return on net worth, and all those things you can write. Therefore, in this case, if you have a overcapitalized company, what is the way? The simple way is for equity share capital, you can do buyback if you want to reduce the equity share capital. If you want to reduce the preference share capital, you can do redemption. If you want to reduce the debt by way of debentures, then you can redeem those debentures. If there is a loan, you can repay the loan. So these are the ways where you can restructure the overcapitalized balance sheet. This is the case where funds invested are more than the investment opportunities which are available in the company. Next, overcapitalized company, or the symptom of a overcapitalized company would be when the company is having too many losses, fictitious assets, or you can say there is a strong impairment in the assets value. The assets value have gone significantly down. Therefore, in this case, the company is now overcapitalized company because the valuation of the assets are inflated. So in that case, to match the balance sheet, company has to reduce the value of its asset and get to their actual value. And once the asset side is reduced, you also need to reduce the liability side of the balance sheet. That's where the concept of reduction of share capital comes into the picture. Now, of course, you have studied section 66, so you know the types of reduction. So one of the mode of the remedy for a overcapitalized company in case of losses would be reduction of share capital. Now, will I write reduction of share capital here? Will I write reduction of share capital here? It can be, but don't write that we will write off the losses. Why? Because here there is no loss. In this first situation, there is no loss. It's only that the funds are there in a more amount than as it is required. There are surplus funds, there are surplus idle funds. So you need to return those surplus idle funds. So when you draft your language here for a overcapitalized company which is having surplus fund, don't write off the losses. First you say you can do buyback. Thereafter you can say, but buyback has a limit of 25% in a financial year. Hence, if the company wants to reduce its equity share capital further or beyond 25%, then the company will have to resort for reduction of share capital under section 66. So write your answer like this, because reduction of share capital can be used for both the ways, to return the surplus cash also and also for the losses. So just watch out with your language what you write in the exam. Thereafter, if you see if the company is undercapitalized, this means that company has insufficient funds, okay, or there is too much debt in the company. If there is too much debt in the company, you infuse equity, and if the company has insufficient fund, then in that case you need to infuse more funds. Now when I say how the company is having insufficient funds, so how do you know that the company is having insufficient funds? That's because the company has investment opportunities, but the funds are not there. So it's exactly opposite of what was there in the overcapitalized company, where funds were more but the investment opportunities were less. Here the funds are less and the investment opportunities are more, and you're not able to meet the demand, or you're not able to cater the business, you're not able to invest in those investable or in the profitable ventures because the funds are not available. Therefore, we say the company is undercapitalized and it is underperforming. The reason for underperforming is because it does not have sufficient funds. So both undercapitalization and overcapitalization are not good. So financial restructuring is what is your balance sheet restructuring, and there are only two situations: you're overcapitalized and you're undercapitalized. And again, you have the remedies accordingly, you can do that. Now, what is the result of financial, or what are the indicators that the company needs to do a financial restructuring? It's when the earnings per share are falling constantly, or the market price per share is falling constantly. Then there you realize. So these are indicators, not necessary that when the EPS is falling, it is due to financial restructuring only, or you need financial restructuring, or when the market price is falling, it requires. But these are some of the indicators. So when I say the EPS is falling, the market price is constantly falling, there could be one of the reason that maybe the balance sheet is not appropriate. It's not a balanced one. and we need to either it is over capitalized or it is under capitalized, so we need to improve that. Or let's say the company is not able to justify the return with respect to the capital which is which is invested in the business. Company wants to improve the return on the equity or return on the net worth, or company wants to write off the losses in the balance sheet. So that's where we say poor financial conditions. This is there. Again, next is your market restructuring. So in case of market restructuring, you get four terminologies. One is market penetration, market development, product development, and diversification. So market penetration is, just remember these two things: existing market, existing product. So you enter into the existing market with your existing product, you try to penetrate the market, which means you try to expand the market share, you are try to attract more and more customers, and that's how you do the market penetration. When I say market development, you take your existing product to the new market and you say that we are doing the market development, which means we are entering into the new markets. So like Tesla is entering into India, that's a classic example of market development. And when I say product development, so in your existing market, when you get new products, like what Apple does, it keeps on getting new products. I'm not talking about the new versions of the iPhone. Okay. Uh, though you can also justify that as a product development, but that's again iPhone only. But like if you see, they are getting into new products. Like initially they had iPod, right? Then iWatch, MacBook, right? iPad, iPhone. So gradually they are getting new products again in the market. So in their existing market, they are getting new products. So that's again your product development. And when you have diversification, that's again when you enter into altogether new sector, like Reliance is doing. They're entering into telecom space. They're getting into retail, fashion. So multiple areas where Reliance is venturing into diversification. Now, then we sorry, then we discussed about the development of the core competency. Core competency means getting edge over your competitors, so increase the market share. These are fine. Then again, if you see some of the examples, synergy gain, yeah, yeah, just write this synergy gain. This, what do you mean by synergy gain? If you get an answer, synergy gain is the worth of the company, the or the combined worth of the company is more than their individual worth. That's where we say synergy gain. I think somewhere I've written this also. Yes, when the combined valuation of the companies, okay, the combined valuation of two or more companies is worth more than individual value, we say we have developed some synergy benefit. It can be in terms of valuation, it can be in terms of let's say the profitability, it can be in terms of the operations or the customer base, whatever the case may be. So that's where we say you develop a synergy benefit. You can write an example also for this. When it comes to synergy gain, that A is valued at 100, B is valued at 100. So if A and B they combine and they are valued at 200, there is no synergy gain. But if A and B they are valued more than 200, that's where you say there is a synergy gain. So this 40 is the synergy gain, and this can be due to, or this can be in the form of market value, earnings per share, overall valuation, customer base, whatever. Further, if you see here, next we had discussed about the mergers. So what happens in case of a mergers, though tomorrow's entire lecture is dedicated to mergers only, but tomorrow we'll be discussing about the different provisions like section 230 to 240 with respect to the mergers. But today we just understand what is the concept of merger. So there is going to be a transferor company, there will be a transferee company. The transferor company transfers the assets, liabilities, and businesses to the transferee company. In return, they pay a purchase consideration to the transferor company, which is distributed amongst the shareholders of the transferor company. Now this distribution, okay, can be by way of the purchase consideration, can be by way of cash, where we say we have buyout. This is basically buyout. Okay. This is where we say buyout. We have purchased the company, or it can be by way of a share swap deal, where you say that the shareholders of the transferor company, they become the shareholders of the transferee company. And in this case, we have to find out the ratio. We need to do the valuation to find out what amount of shares we should give to the shareholders of the transferor company. So the valuations and all are done, which we have already covered in our valuations. Now, mergers can be by way of absorption, or it can be by formation of a new company. So when two companies club together and one company vanishes, then we say it is by way of absorption. One has absorbed the other. And when both the companies come together and form a new company, we say merger is by formation of a new company. Now, the different types of merger which you are going to see is horizontal, vertical. So in case of horizontal, you acquire the companies which are at the same level, you acquire your competitors who are into the same industry, same business. Okay. Same industry and same business. This is again important. A classic example now that you can write is when Tatas have acquired Air India, right? So this is again a new example that you can write in. So this is a horizontal, right? They are already into Singapore Airlines is there, Vistara is there, right? Not Singapore Airlines, Air Asia. Air Asia is there, Vistara is there, and now again you have Air India. So what they have done is horizontal merger. So they've expanded their stake in the entire aviation sector. Now, when I say backward or forward, so this is vertical integration. So in case of vertical integration, you move backward or you move forward in the same supply chain or the product line. You are into the same industry, same business, but again at the different levels of the production. Now, guys, remember, you need to be very careful with the words that you write in your answer. In case of vertical merger, you are into the same industry, same business, but at different levels of the production. And either you are acquiring your supplier or you are acquiring your customer. A classic dummy example that I always give is basically that rubber manufacturing company acquiring a tire manufacturing company, then a tire manufacturing company acquiring a automobile company. So that example you can give. And horizontal merger, so this is again belongs to the same business, same industry at the same level of production, and this is basically merger between the competitors. What's the reason? Now again, if you connect it to those 10 points, you will find it here. Reduces the competition, increases the market share, economies of scale, where you actually say the cost gets reduced, and dominance, overall dominance in the market. Don't write this because their dominance have again gone down only. But now definitely you can write, instead of Vodafone and Idea, you can definitely write how Tatas have acquired Air India. So that can be a good example. They have increased their dominance in the aviation sector. Now, when it comes to vertical merger, just write this. They are not competitors, but they are at the different level of the production, right? They are not competitors of each other. They have synergy benefits. There is a lot of synergy benefits. So dominance, economies of scale, reduction of competition, and you can write synergy. They get a lot of synergy benefits here. Now, rubber manufacturing company. Now, again, in one more case, any point of time where you feel your content is weak, what you can do is actually you can quote an example. Quote an example, like in this case, for your economies of scale, I've quoted this example here that the cost is 100, profit is 20. So the selling price is 120 rupees, and then this is sold to the supplier. The supplier adds his 30 rupees profit. So overall, if you see, there is a 50 rupee profit element when the selling price is 200. Now, if you acquire all the companies, now thereafter you can reduce the overall profit from 40, from this 50 rupees. Even if you make it 40, you make it 30 or whatever amount, your number of volumes is going to increase, and that's where your competitor will have a hit. And CCI also cannot do anything because this is not NT, your this is not abuse of dominance, right? You're not doing price bid, you're not doing the price reduction, right? You're not selling it below the cost, you're still selling it above the cost. So no one can again accuse you or of any anti-competitive practice. Then this is the example, same example. Then you have the conglomerate merger, where you say unrelated companies they acquire. The reason is risk reduction, grow bigger, right? Overall diversification. The main reason is risk reduction, and you want to venture into the new areas of the business. Now, for conglomerate business, you can always write a dummy example, but make sure those two companies are like not related at all, right? There should not be any synergy. Don't write car and manufacturing company acquires tire manufacturing company, or car manufacturing acquires automobile, another two-wheeler company. Don't write that. मेक एकदम डिस्टिंक्ट एग्जाम्पल, जितना दूर का सोच सकते हो उतना दूर का सोचो, कि सूरज और चांद ये हो जाता है अनरिलेटेड पूरा इस तरीके से, राइट? सो मेक श्योर दैट यू राइट and give the example that when the companies have no relation at all. Thereafter, co-generic or con-generic, if you see, they are into the same industry, but they are not into the same business. They have similar goods, they have synergy, they are related to each other. They use the same supply chain. Just write it. I think somewhere I have written it or I have not written it. Okay, so just write it here that they use the same supply chain. Okay, their same supply chain, and due to the same supply chain they get the benefit. Like the soap manufacturing company starts manufacturing shampoo and conditioner and other cosmetic products. So that's again congeneric merger. And what is the reason? You diversify the portfolio, synergy, benefits, right? So exam question: cogeneric merger or congeneric merger is neither horizontal nor vertical, or let's say this is conglomerate merger is neither horizontal nor vertical. So in this case, like I mentioned, write it in the points, explain what is horizontal, explain what is vertical, explain what is conglomerate, and then enter your answer, end your answer with the comment, or start your answer with the comment that yes, the conglomerate merger is neither horizontal or nor vertical. That's because horizontal is this, vertical is this, and conglomerate is this. And then you can write an example. This way you can get answer. Now, often I have seen institute over the past few years, they have been asking question for 3 marks that what is the difference between mergers and acquisition. So in case of mergers and acquisition, mergers, two or more companies, they come together and so either one company is absorbed by the other, or they both come together and they form a new company. In case of acquisition, two or more companies come together, but one company is acquired by the other and both the companies remain in existence. So in case of merger, you will have absorption or by formation of a new company. If it's absorption, the transferor company loses the identity. In case of the formation by new company, you have the transferee company, which can be an existing company or it is a new company. In case of an acquisition, there is neither transferor nor transferee. You have a target company which is acquired by an acquirer company. So this is another way. Thereafter, you have this acquisition. So this is fine. Both the companies remain independent. Now, acquisition can be again hostile, or acquisition can be friendly. So when you say it's a hostile acquisition, so the target company is acquired against the wish of its promoter or its director, board of directors or management. And a recent example that you can write is Mindtree was acquired by L&T. Okay, and when it's a friendly takeover, or there you say that it's a negotiated deal. Reliance acquired Hathway. There, Reliance have done many acquisitions. You can also write many examples of Baiju. Baiju is also doing the same thing. So the same example you can quote it here also. Anyway, so next you have, now of course, transferor company is also called as the amalgamating company, which ceases to exist. Okay, and the other one is called as the amalgamated company, that's the transferee company. So how to remember? Transferor company is the merging company, merging company is the amalgamating company. So just remember this, Jing Ting. So maybe you'll remember it this way and you may not get confused between which is amalgamated company and which is amalgamating company. What's the difference? So the Companies Act uses the word transferor and the transferee company. However, if you pick up Income Tax Act, they use the word amalgamating company and the amalgamated company. So apart from that, there is no difference between the two. Uh, then again, merger, the word merger is not defined anywhere, only in the explanation of section 232. They have given what are the different types of merger. However, if you see amalgamation, so again, amalgamation is defined in the Income Tax Act, right? Where there are three conditions: 70, so the assets, the liabilities, and 3/4 of the shareholders. All the assets are transferred, all the liabilities are transferred, and 3/4 of the number of the members before the amalgamation of the amalgamating company becomes the shareholders of the amalgamated company. So that's where you get the amalgamation here. Then again, you have this concept of demerger. One of the common question which they ask you, demerger is not defined in the Companies Act. What does it mean? Or something like that. So you can always write that demerger is not defined in the Companies Act. However, demerger is defined in the Income Tax Act, right? One is this. And then you can write that in case of demerger, what happens? The company is split into two or more parts. Okay, where one part you have is called as the demerged company, and the other part is called as the resulting company. So the company which is the product of demerger is called as the resulting company, or the result of demerger is you get a resulting company, and the resulting company comes out from the demerged company. Now this demerger can be either it can be a complete demerger, or this demerger can be, okay, so I haven't covered this here. Demerger I have covered elsewhere, when we did the taxation part, but since we are discussing this, I'll tell you demerger can be either it can be a complete demerger. Okay, demerger can be by way of, it can be a complete demerger or it can be a partial demerger. So in case of partial demerger, you will have the demerged company as well as the resulting company. But when it comes to the complete demerger, the demerged company ceases to exist. You will have two or more resulting company, and that's where you get this. Recently, I think there was one news of demerger of one of the company. I'm not able to recall the name of the company, but if you can just do a bit of Google search on that, some recent news, you'll find one of the company that has just got demerged, but I don't remember the name of the company. It's actually not striking. So this is what is there in your chapter number 1. Now, as far as the new syllabus students are concerned, for you all, we have covered this part like financial restructuring. We did it with the buyback. So if you just check here, corporate restructuring, like I mentioned that you can get this question as a comment. Corporate restructuring is an inorganic growth strategy. Thereafter, the need, this we have already covered here. Then the motives behind the corporate restructuring. So it can be financial or it can be other. So when it comes to financial, just write everything with respect to money, with respect to the balance sheet, with respect to profitability. Okay, the valuations. And others can be again marketing, new products, synergy benefits in terms of the operations, revive the sick company, and also to resolve the bankruptcy and insolvency of the companies. This is there. Recent mergers and acquisitions. I think this list is quite now old, so you can have some new list of companies. Financial, market, organizational, and the technological. So financial restructuring, we have already discussed. Marketing is basically when or you enter into the new market, right, or with the new products that is there. So for that, what do? You make alliances with the third party that have technical knowledge, or they have the technical resources. The objectives, just remember the things that I've highlighted. And old syllabus students, for you all also, these points are very, very important. Just see the product market segment, core competency, technological restructuring, new technology. Use these words, right? When it comes to technological or market restructuring, you enter into the new product market, right? Or with your product, you enter into the new market. You focus on your core competency and try to expand the market base. You do market penetration. Core competency helps you to do market penetration. Technological restructuring, this again helps you to do the expansion, new technology. You alliance with the third party that have technical knowledge, right? Then you have these joint venture, strategic alliance, and franchising, right? Ramakant has just said that I know in case of Piramal Enterprise. So what has happened in case of Piramal Enterprise? Vertical demerger. Okay. So Piramal Enterprise vertical demerger has taken place. So that can be one example. So other students, you can just do a Google search about it with respect to that. Thank you, Ramakant, for sharing this example, right? The vertical demerger. Just do a Google search for that and try to incorporate that in your answer, right? So that will be helpful. Joint ventures is again another way. So uh, in case of joint venture, two or more companies, just remember how you define, that's very, very important. In case of joint venture, two or more companies, they remain independent and they come together for a particular project or for a particular venture, which can be for which can be a time specified or which can be a activity specified, that only for this activity we are together, we are entering into joint venture. Or it can be for time specified, for 5 years we are entering into a joint venture. So just remember, when you define joint venture, just mention that two companies come together, they remain independent, yet they come together for a particular adventure, for a particular venture, or it can be for time specific. Same goes for your strategic alliance. Two companies remain independent, they come together and they form a alliance. And when you try to define strategic alliance, also define what you mean by alliance. Alliances when they come together for a specific purpose. Here they again do resource sharing. Same thing happens in case of joint venture. It's quite similar. Strategic alliance and joint venture quite similar. It's just that here they work together, here they may or they may not work together, but they are getting synergy benefits, right? Mutual benefits. Like a classic example I always give for strategic alliance is the credit card companies. They align with the restaurants or with the airline company or with the petroleum companies or other companies where they give additional cashbacks and discounts. So that is again what, it's a strategic alliance. That's not a joint venture, that's a strategic alliance. And in case of franchising, there is a brand owner who allows or who permits the franchisee partner to use the brand name, and in return gets a franchisee fee and revenue sharing. So this is what happens in case of franchising. Organizational restructuring, where you change the employees of the company, you create new department, you either downsize the company, right? You eliminate the department. So it can be anything. You expand the company where you bring new resources, you like the new human resource in the organization, or you eliminate the department, you downsize the company where you eliminate a lot of the employees, right? And retrenchment is done in that particular case, and you focus. So that can, there can be anything there. uh, Legal framework for corporate restructuring. Now, I also believe that this can be one of the question, that what are the legal frameworks which are there in the corporate restructuring. So this is nothing. This is just your entire CRI syllabus, part A CRI syllabus. You can write, you have chapter 15 of the Companies Act, that's from section 230 to 240, buyback regulations, reduction of share capital, section 66, section 68, right? And then Income Tax Act, right? And then accounting standards, FEMA, Competition Act, stamp duty, Stamp Act, intellectual property right. IBC is also now part of your the part of the corporate restructuring activity. So just write your CRI syllabus only, but don't make it very evident that you have written your index. Okay, don't do that. Just write it this way. And if it is a 5-mark question where they ask you what are the legal frameworks which are available, so just explain that chapter 15, it covers or from section 230 to 240, which provides the legal framework for the mergers and the acquisition, demergers and takeover. Buyback section 68, which provides a process and the conditions for the buyback of the shares. Reduction of share capital section 66. The moment you write section 66, you can mention that when the company is over capitalized, it wants to reduce the capital, or the company is having a lot of losses. So that's where the reduction of share capital can come into picture. Then again, you can write FEMA, that if the corporate restructuring activity involves foreign currency or non-residents, or if it involves uh, companies which are one is in India, the other is in abroad. That's where FEMA also comes into picture. Competition Act, you can mention where they result in combinations, or if there is any anti-competitive activity or there is abuse of dominant position. So Competition Act comes into picture. But otherwise, broadly, if you see, it is combination only, right? So that's where it comes into picture. Stamp duty, because the transfer of assets that takes place, that's where intellectual property, because there can be IPRs which are there with the transferor company, and that gets exchanged. IBC, you can of course write, this is for the resolution of the financially distressed company here. So these are the rules that you can mention. Then the different types of mergers and amalgamation. Reasons for mergers and amalgamation, again, very, very important. So this is similar to the need for corporate restructuring, but just the different way. Becoming bigger, preempted competition, right? There is already a strong competition driving force in the market. So to beat that competition, two or more companies, they come together. And then again, domination, you want to expand your market share, but do mention about CCIs, because this way you will uh, in a way you will, without institute asking you about the concepts of combination and all, you are still trying to, you have answered to your examiner indirectly that you have read that chapter also and you have understood the concept. that it's not that when the two companies merge you grow bigger, and it's very good for you expand the market share, because there is a hurdle called as CCI, which I won't say hurdle, but there is a barrier. Checks and the balances have been put by the Competition Act, and you have CCI there, which will check if the company and is now a combination or not. Tax benefit, you can also write section 72A. Plus you can also write if the company is defined, if the transaction is defined as per the Income Tax Act. If it's amalgamation which is defined as amalgamation as per the Income Tax Act, you again get the tax benefit, right? If you remember, though we will be again discussing in the coming lectures, but if you remember that uh, the expenses which are incurred by the transferor company, right, which are not written off, would be now allowed to be set off or written off by the transferee company. It will be treated as if the transferee company has done all those expenses. Same goes for the demerger. Then again, the economies of scale, acquisition of new technology, right, and improved market reach and industry visibility, right? So this is there. Mergers and amalgamation can take place like this. So it can be a acquisition of asset, it can be by it can be a cash deal, it can be a share swap, right? Anything. Now the M&A includes the different types of transaction. So this is the same question which you are going to find it in the old syllabus. Okay, so in the old syllabus, the same paragraph which was there in the new syllabus, inorganic growth, right? Thereafter, if you see, you again get this question as a comment. Corporate restructuring is a process of significantly changing the business model. So basically you have to just write about the inorganic growth and the benefits of corporate restructuring. And then you get this question, the various corporate restructuring strategies. This is there. The same thing has been here. The M&A can take place into the different forms. So it's quite similar, but again, used in a different way. So M&A can take place in a different way. Mergers, acquisition, amalgamation, consolidations. Now, what happens in case of consolidation? Companies in the same group, they consolidate. So you have a common parent company which is having multiple subsidiary company. Now they all consolidate and they become one. So that's consolidation. Tender offers is basically your open offer, the SAST regulation, takeover regulation. Purchase of the assets, where you say you acquire the undertaking. When you have to acquire the undertaking, you have section 180 subsection 1 clause C, the acquisition of the undertaking. Other way is by way of the scheme of amalgamation. If it's a demerger, management buyout, when the employees of the company, the directors of the company, they acquire. So this part we have already discussed, the merger, the different types of merger, horizontal, vertical, conglomerate, concentric, acquisitions, right? So difference between mergers and acquisition. Amalgamation we have already discussed. Now amalgamation is also defined in AS 14, accounting for amalgamation, where it means that all the assets of the company is becoming the assets of the transferee company, all the liabilities. Then again, 3/4 of the shareholders, they become the shareholders of the transferee company. I'm sorry, when I use that amalgamation, it's 90%, it's not 3/4. In the Income Tax Act, it is 90%, it is not 3/4. Okay, 3/4 is here. 3/4 is in case of the accounting. No, I'm sorry. Income Tax Act, it's 3/4, but AS 14, it is 90%. So just be very careful. It becomes a little confusing. So when I say Income Tax Act, it is 3/4 of the shareholders, they should remain same. So I was correct at the first place. And when I say AS 14, 90% of the shareholders should remain same, right? So this is there. Reasons for amalgamation, this is again the same reason that you are going to get. Then consolidation, like I mentioned, group gets consolidated into one. Tender offer is your open offer, acquisition of assets, which can again be by way of slump sale, sale under the Companies Act section 180, IBC, management buyout, right? And purchase of a company by way of a resolution as a resolution applicant. So you can write Bhushan Steel, right? Many companies, Jet Airways, there are many companies now which are being acquired under the pursuant to the resolution plan under IBC. Uh, Recent mergers and acquisition. Now this is no longer very recent. Demerger, like I said, I have discussed more in the taxation part, but I've given you a brief idea. Now divestiture, spin-off, split up. This is again important from your exam perspective, the different types of demerger. So one is the complete demerger and the uh, partial demerger, right? Now then you have the different types of demerger here. Where is divestiture, where you say that it is the disposal of the assets. That's it. It's a complete demerger, right? There we say the disposal of the assets. Then you have something called as spin-off. So in that case, the parent company spins off a new company, and the assets of those companies are given to the shareholders. Okay, so you have the shareholders, and then you have the holding company, and then this company is their subsidiary company. This subsidiary company is now split off. This is basically spin-off, and after spin-off you will have the same set of shareholder holding the shares of H Limited and this S Limited, and these two companies will have no relation, except for that they have a common shareholder. So this is what happens here. So either there is already an existing company whose shares are transferred to the shareholders, or probably there can be a new company which is being formed. So either it is like this, or it is like this. There is a shareholder H Limited, and in H Limited there are various divisions. So what do? You do it like this. You have H Limited and you have, let's say, H1 Limited. So this can also be spin-off. But what happens in case of spin-off, that I've just explained you here. Then you have split. This is complete demerger. And equity carve out. Equity carve out is basically your demerger along with the public issue. So here again, a percentage of the subsidiary company is issued to the public. So both the cases, this is the different types of demerger. Equity carve out is only for the new syllabus. ओल्ड सिलेबस स्टूडेंट्स, आप लोगों को अभी तक इक्विटी कार्व आउट के ऊपर क्वेश्चन आया नहीं है, कभी भी नहीं आया, पर इसका ये मतलब नहीं है वो नहीं आ सकता. आई हैव ऑलरेडी टॉट टू यू all this in the class, so you can write that in the exam. So you have divestiture, you have spin-off, split, like split up, and then you have equity carve out. This is there. Slump sale is again I have discussed in the taxation part, but now you know that in case of slump sale, what happens? You sell the undertaking, right? You sell the undertaking, and the taxation benefits and all which are there, we will discuss that in the taxation chapter. Now, reasons for divestiture, huge losses, right? Or basically even for demerger. Why does a company do demerger? So in case of demerger, there is huge divisional losses. So you don't want those loss-making company to be there in the business. One of the reason for that is, much talked about in the market is ITC, that ITC should demerge its tobacco business, and once it demerges its tobacco business, the overall valuation of the company would go up. Then you have the continuous and the negative cash flows. If a particular division is giving you negative cash flows, that's where you say demerge that particular company so that the impact of that particular division does not come on the other businesses. Then if there is difficulty in integrating the business with the company, there is dissimilarity between the business. So one of the way of diversification is risk reduction. Okay, the reason for diversification is risk reduction. But now the company has diversified, or the other way, the company which has now diversified believes that it is very difficult for them to manage. So you do demerger and you split the two companies. So that's how we say the grass is always greener on the other side. So the company which is into the single venture, it says we want to reduce the risk, so let's diversify. And the company which is diversified believes that it is now becoming difficult to manage both the separate entities or separate divisions, so it's better to demerge. Then if the company is unable to meet the competition, then it again demerges. So this again happens in case of a conglomerate company which has one of the division which is very good. A classic example again, ITC. The hotel business is good, Tobacco business is good, FMCG is good, but the IT business is not that great. So, and the IT business is not able to meet the competition. So that's where you demerge the IT business. That IT business is now taken over by some other giant company into the IT sector, and ITC gets cash or basically then they can focus only on the other profitable business. Then if they have a better alternatives of the investment, so again we say it for ITC that in long run they should diversify from the tobacco business to the other businesses, and that's what they have done. So you find the better alternatives for the business, right? And then there is lack of technological upgradation due to the non-affordability. So now the business in which you are in, especially in case of technology driven company, the technology has now got upgraded. Now you are not able to meet that, right? So therefore you demerge the company and you split it off. Lack of integration between the divisions. So again, the same example that I gave here, difficulty in integrating the business. So if there is lack of integration between the divisions, and sometimes there is a legal pressure. Now, what sort of legal pressure would make you split the company? That is the Competition Commission of India. CCI would say that you have grown too big, okay, and we believe that you are doing your abuse of dominant position. So one of the remedy that Competition Act provides for the abuse of dominant position is split the company so that it doesn't remain into the dominant position. If it is not there in the dominant position, the company will not be able to abuse its dominant position. So legal pressure, it is there. Joint venture, we discussed about the equity and the non-equity joint ventures. So Vistara Airlines, like it's a Tata and Singapore Airlines joint venture, Tata Starbucks, right? So this is their strategic alliance we have discussed. Don't write Etihad Airways. This example is now not a very good example because Jet Airways is no longer into operations as of now. But yes, ICICI Bank, Vodafone, M-Pesa, this is a strategic alliance. Flipkart and Axis Bank, additional discount. Then you can write Amazon and ICICI, right? So that's again the strategic alliance which is being given. Reverse merger. So there is no term as such called as reverse merger. So reverse merger is not defined anywhere. But what actually reverse merger is when the loss making company is acquired by a profit making company, and the reason is section 72A. So this is in case of a reverse merger. Though module also mentions this part, that when a private limited company acquires a public listed company and get itself listed, so that is also a reverse merger. But like we have seen in section 232, a company straight away cannot get itself listed. An unlisted company straight away cannot get listed by acquiring a listed company. It has to comply with the conditions of the listing conditions, only then it can get listed. But yes, prima facie that also falls into the category of reverse merger. And then financial restructuring, this will do it with the help of when we do the buyback chapter from the old syllabus module. So these are the topics that we have already covered: mergers, right? Horizontal, vertical, congeneric, conglomerate merger, demerger, reverse merger, disinvestments. So disinvestments takes place when the government stake sales its stake. Okay, so a classic example now is your Tata, not Tata, Air India. Air India disinvestment is again a classic example that is we can write in the exam. Takeover, friendly, hostile. Then you have joint venture, which is project based, functional based. So in the new syllabus, the different types of joint venture is equity based and non-equity based. So doesn't matter, it's same. Equity based when you set up a new company, non-equity based when you don't set up a company. Same thing goes here. A project based joint venture, which is only for a particular venture, and functional based is when you basically form a new company. So Hero Honda was kind of a functional based joint venture, and project based joint venture is like construction of a bridge, a highway, or airport, or any infrastructure facility. Then you have strategic alliance, franchising, okay, slum sale. Now of course for the old syllabus student, you may get one more question in your exam from chapter number 1, that is what are the instances when the company can be wound up. Okay, this was indeed asked in one of the attempt, that how a company can be wound up. New syllabus students, you won't get this question because this is purely in your part B. Old syllabus student, this is there in your part C, but since this has been discussed in part A, so even this question can come. So you have a fair chance that this question, that on what grounds the company can be wound up, this question can be asked in part A as well as in your part C. So in both the cases, you may get this particular question. So be prepared for it, that a company can be wound up when the special resolution has been passed, or if the company is acted against the interest of the sovereignty and integrity of India, or if application is made by the registrar or any person authorized by the central government, that's the investigating authority, and it proves that the affairs of the company are acted, conducted in the fraudulent manner, or the purpose was fraudulent or unlawful purpose, and it is just and proper that the company should be wound up, then in that case it can be wound up. If the tribunal feels it is just and equitable, or if the company has made default in filing its financial statements or annual return with the registrar for 5 consecutive years, then in that case the company can be wound up. So this question you may get in the exam. So this is what is there in your chapter number 1 for both old as well as the new syllabus. Next lecture when we are going to start, we are going to start with section 230 to 240, and we'll cover that tomorrow itself at 9 o'clock. So that's it for your today's lecture. Take care. Bye bye.